Hello, viewers, and welcome to a very special episode of our podcast. I'll begin this podcast with a quote by Khalid Hosseini, author of The Kite Runner. The immigrant's journey is not just about seeking a better life. It's about the courage to redefine what is possible and to achieve greatness in new lands. It is with profound gratitude and immense admiration that I introduce a trailblazer in science, a devoted leader in astrophysics, and a woman whose journey exemplifies the power of resilience and perseverance, Dr. Hashima Hasan. Born in the vibrant city of Lucknow, India, Dr. Hasan's pursuit of science was sparked by a deep fascination with space exploration, inspired by the historic endeavors of Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, and Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman to journey into space. Their groundbreaking achievements ignited within her a passion to explore the unknown and break new ground, even in a world that presented barriers to her aspirations. This desire to reach for the stars led her to push boundaries that many thought were insurmountable. Her journey in education began at Loreto Convent Girls High School in Lucknow, where, despite the school not allowing women to study sciences, she defied the limitation by studying her brother's science textbooks. She then went on to earn a Bachelor's of Science from Lucknow University, followed by a Master's of Science and an MPhil from Aligarh Muslim University. Shortly after starting her PhD at AMU, she was awarded a Commonwealth Scholarship, allowing her to attend the University of Oxford. In 1976, she received her PhD in theoretical nuclear physics at Oxford, marking a pivotal moment in her scientific career. Dr. Hasan's story is not only one of intellectual achievement, but also one of overcoming adversity. As a Muslim woman and an immigrant, she faced numerous obstacles in a male-dominated field, yet she broke through those barriers with grace and determination, carving out a remarkable career in the United States. Her experience is a beacon of hope for others who navigate multiple worlds, cultures, and expectations, showing them that perseverance and passion can lead to greatness. Dr. Hasan's unparalleled contributions to the field of astrophysics are monumental. As the deputy program scientist for the James Webb Space Telescope and other flagship NASA missions, she has been at the forefront of expanding our understanding of the universe. Her leadership in programs such as the Hubble Space Telescope has helped unlock the mysteries of distant galaxies, and her work continues to shape the future of space exploration. But beyond the stars, Dr. Hasan's passion lies in nurturing the next generation of scientists, especially young women and minorities who, like her, have dared to dream beyond what the world expects of them. Today, we honor not just her scientific achievements, but the broader impact of her life's work, the quiet dignity with which she has challenged the boundaries of possibility. As a Muslim immigrant and as a woman, she exemplifies the beauty of diversity in the global scientific community, reminding us all that knowledge has no borders and that the quest for excellence transcends all boundaries of race, gender, and nationality. It is a great honor to have Dr. Hashima Hasan on the podcast today. In her, we see the embodiment of the values we cherish: dedication, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to bettering our world. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Hashima Hasan. Dr. Hashima, it is truly a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your unbelievably busy schedule to make this happen. I have the deepest admiration for you, and I'm very excited for this conversation. Now, up here, we have James Webb Telescope's first deep field space image. Can you explain to me what this image is? And can you maybe explain to our viewers what this image is and what the meaning of this is and why this is monumental?
This was the first image which was unveiled to the public by President Biden. And here we see millions and millions of galaxies which now have been analyzed by scientists, as some of them going back as like 300 million years after the Big Bang. So, and in addition to direct images, you see these little arcs, and those are gravitational lensed galaxies. This means that when there's a big galaxy and behind it there is another galaxy, the light from the galaxy which is behind the big galaxy gets bent, and the big galaxy acts like a gravitational lens. And so you get a series of arcs depending on which direction the light from the galaxy behind the big galaxy is being bent by gravity.
So it is the gravity that is bending the light.
Yes.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So this furthered, from compared to Hubble telescope, right? How much further were we able to peer into the universe with the development of James Webb Telescope?
With James Webb Telescope, the goal was, and we are beginning to achieve some of it, to see the very first stars and galaxies which formed after the Big Bang, which was around 300 to 400 million years after the Big Bang. And we are now beginning to see that. We're seeing the galaxies in here.
And why is that important?
How did the universe start? That's something which is always, it's a fundamental question which any human being wants to know the answer of. And so that is really what we are trying to get at, the root of. Where did we all come from?
That is true. I think that's a very big question. And it's, a lot of political, religious, theological debates begin with this. So the fact that you were at the forefront of helping the world understand what our origins are, it's amazing. I'm in awe. And how long did it take to develop the James Webb Telescope? And what were some of the intricacies behind it?
So the very first idea of having a telescope like this started off with a conference in 1989 at Space Telescope Science Institute, when the scientists started thinking, what will we do after Hubble? Hubble hadn't even launched. It launched in 1990. But they started thinking of what will we do, what science can we do beyond Hubble?
Well, before the launch of Hubble.
Before the launch of Hubble, the scientists were already thinking ahead. And so, a lot of activities were going on. And in 1995, I was at NASA headquarters when Dr. Ed Weiler, who was the branch chief at that time, asked me to send a grant to John Mather, who is now a Nobel laureate. At that time he wasn't.
Wow.
To study what we called the Next Generation Space Telescope.
Wow.
And also around the same time, the NASA administrator, Mr. Golden, asked for a study to be done for what next we should do in astronomy. And there was a report, Hubble and Beyond, and by Alan Dressler, which said that we should go for a 4-meter infrared telescope. And then Daniel Golden said, why stop at 4 meters? Why don't you go for 8 meters? So, and then finally, I think what really started the development was in 2000, where every 10 years there's a National Academy does what is called a decadal survey, which gives direction to NASA and NSF and Department of Astronomy on how to spend the public money on the biggest science questions. And they put infrared telescope as the highest priority for NASA. And so then we started working in serious on the telescope. And by 2005, I would say we had developed some of the leading technologies, what we call long lead items, which were the mirrors, the sun shield to protect the telescope from the heat of the sun.
Okay.
Detectors, infrared detectors, the integrated circuits. And so I think about 8 or 10 new technologies, which were long lead tech, which were ready by 2006.
Quite earlier than the launch. Yeah.
Yeah, quite earlier than launch. So initially, launch said, engineers thought we should launch by 2008, but then it went to 2015, and finally we launched in 21. I mean, there were a lot of challenges because there was a lot of completely new technology. It cost more than we thought it would. We needed to get the money from Congress. So there were a lot of hurdles we had to overcome.
And I remember from reading about the telescope that it was the project with the most single point failures ever in the NASA history.
That's right.
And it was over 300 single point failures.
Yes.
And for our viewers, a single point failure is one failure that could cause the entire mission to fail. And there were 300 plus that they had to solve in order for this project to truly be successful. And, in that time, as the deputy program scientist, how did you feel in that moment when Congress, you might lose funding, you may be over budget or whatever it is? I can't imagine the pressure that you must have been feeling in that moment.
Yes, of course, there was a lot of pressure. And then, of course, we had our partners, the European Space Agency, the Canadian Space Agency. So we were always meeting with them also to make sure that they were on board and their interests were taken care of. We had to assure them that, we are going to get this done. And I would say the date which stands out in my mind was 9/11. That day, I was personally responsible for conducting a review for what is now the mid-infrared instrument. And we had negotiated with the Europeans that NASA would do a part of it and the Europeans would do the other part of it. And I was given the charge that we had to decide which of the NASA centers would manage the NASA side of the instrument. So I had to work with the directors of 3 centers, Goddard Space Flight Center, Ames Research Center, and JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, to get proposals from them.
Yeah.
First, I'd asked them if they were interested in leading this instrument, and if they were, then they should submit proposals, which I would have reviewed. And we were conducting the review of those proposals in DC when 9/11 happened. So whenever I see a dramatic image from mid-infrared instrument, I remember that moment. That was probably the highest pressure moment in this project.
And how did 9/11 affect you as a Muslim immigrant, in terms of work environment, or maybe outside in the, maybe not in a work environment, maybe in public? How did you feel about that situation? Were there situations where you might have experienced discrimination, perhaps?
I was as you mentioned, raised in India, where I was raised as a minority and as a Muslim minority. So in many ways, I knew how to deal with the situation as a Muslim minority. I think I had enough self-confidence in me. And I'll say that my colleagues at NASA, they were very supportive. I didn't really feel discrimination.
That's great.
I was worried more about my children, where both of them were the younger one was in high school, the older one had just started college. I think it made a greater impact on them than on me.
No, I understand that. So now, speaking of, growing up in India, as a Muslim immigrant, maybe you could perhaps share, what do you miss most about your cultural heritage and your background before you moved and migrated over to the US?
Before I moved, I don't know, it was, I would say, the closeness you felt with the society. And here it was a foreign society. Everyone, I didn't know anyone, and it was a foreign culture. When I needed babysitting, I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't have friends. I didn't have
a support system.
Relatives. I didn't have a support system. So that, I think, was the biggest
family unity and culture. And I understand that. And what was you mentioned that, you were born very short after the Pakistan and India partition.
Right.
What was it like growing up in India during that time? Because it was just a few years afterwards. So what was your experience growing up in post-partition India?
Yeah, it was a really euphoric time. At that time, we just got independence. I mean, as a little girl, partition really didn't mean much to us little children. We were in this new India. We were told by our leaders, Pandit Nehru was the prime minister, that you are the new India. You are going to make this country. So we felt that we were the center of this society. and we would be building this nation. And it was very exciting. And the leaders emphasized science, that it's very important for the children, young children, to learn science. So we really wanted science. We were all very motivated. And in my school, as you mentioned, that there was no science to begin with. But when I reached 9th grade, I was really fortunate that we got a new headmistress who had just visited the United States. And she came back with this really, revolutionary idea that girls can do science. And so she said, introduce science, and selected a small group of us who expressed interest that we wanted to do science. She tested us and chose a small group to do science. It was hard to get teachers because this was a girls' school, and finding women teachers was not easy. So that was a challenge. And then I wanted to do math, and they didn't offer math. They just selected 2 girls for math. And that's where it comes, where you mentioned about me reading my brother's books. I got his math books, and I started reading math myself. Though in the school leaving exam, I did biology.
Ah.
Yeah. But after the high school exam, which at that time was conducted by University of Cambridge, it was called the higher secondary exam. Then when I went to college, which is called intermediate, I joined math there, and I was able to do it because I had studied from my brother's math books. And then we did physics and chemistry and biology in school.
Okay. Gotcha. So, what was the role of your parents? Actually, before we even talk about that, explain to me your relationship with your mother and your father. Perhaps maybe a little bit on their background, because you said that your mother was supportive, especially for that time. That's a very big deal. And I remember vaguely that your father also worked with the Royal British Government. Could you possibly expand on that? What was your relationship with your parents like, and what was it like growing up with them?
Yeah, so when you ask for my earliest memories, my father was in what was known as the Indian Administrative Service. And so this was, country right after independence, it was being developed. So as an IAS officer, he was transferred like every 2 to 3 years. And one of the almost all of India was back or beyond. So they were developing. So when I think I was about 4 years old, when he actually got transferred to Lucknow, which was the bigger city where my grandparents lived, my mother's grandparents lived. So we lived with them. And then 2 years later, my father got transferred to Punjab, where he was made in charge of a fertilizer factory, where the government of India wanted to build a fertilizer factory.
And why were they building a fertilizer factory? Do you remember why they were building the fertilizer factory?
They wanted to build it, for what was the Green Revolution in India. So till then, it was all what we now call organic fertilizer. So to have the Green Revolution and produce more grains, they needed fertilizer.
Oh, for grain production. Okay.
Yeah. So he was made the general manager of the fertilizer factory in this small place called Nangal, very beautiful in the hillside near the river Sutlej. But there weren't really many schools around. So the parents decided that my mother would stay with the children in Lucknow, in the grandparents. And we'd go to school in Lucknow, and then we'd join our father during the summer and winter vacations, wherever he was posted. And during my school life, he was posted many places in India. So
you were closer to your mother, you would say?
Yeah. But our father was always very supportive, especially of the girls. He was very supportive. I would say there was more pressure on the boys than on the girls. Yeah. We were pretty much allowed to do anything we wanted.
Free reign.
Yeah, we had a free reign.
Daddy's girls, yes.
Yeah, because we weren't expected to have a career. So there was no pressure there. But if we wanted to, nobody would stop us.
Gotcha. And after, so your dad was in the British Royal Government. Did his position change after the partition? What happened post-partition with his career?
Yes, so before partition, he was in what the British called the Provincial Civil Service. And then when India got independent, they made this Indian Administrative Service, which was the top level administration, which used to be done by the British. So he got promoted into the Indian Administrative Service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
but the interesting thing was that the administrative structures left by the British were still there.
I see.
So these positions were very powerful because they had been made to rule.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he was a very influential man.
Yeah. So the IS officers were and it continues to a great extent even now. IS officers are very influential.
And how would you say? How did their personalities? What traits do you think rubbed off on you from your mother and your father?
My father, I think he was a very good people's person, and because of that, he was a very good manager. And so I think that was something I learned from him, how he was able to turn any tense situation into a light one.
And I'm sure that carried over with being a program scientist, the deputy program scientist at NASA. I'm sure that's transferable.
Yeah.
So, born in Lucknow, studied at the Convent High School, Girls Convent High School. Explain your educational journey afterwards and how that unfolded your wings to fly to different countries and start pursuing who you are right now.
Yeah, so after Loreto Convent, I did what was called intermediate. So for a bachelor's degree, I wanted to pursue mathematics. Loreto did not have science at bachelor's level. They had till inter. And there was one college, IT college, Isabella Thoburn College. Actually, that had been started by an American lady, philanthropist, way back in the British times. My mother went to that college. They did have science, but they didn't have mathematics. And there was no other women's college in the medium of English which offered mathematics. There was one in the medium of Hindi that offered mathematics, but I had been raised with English medium. So to do mathematics, I had to join the university, which was a big step. I'd never been outside an all-women environment. And it was a bit scary too. But I joined Lucknow University, and mathematics had even fewer girls than any of the other sciences. There were quite a lot in biology. And the university recognized that. So in the mathematics, they had set aside a room which was called the girls' room.
No.
So in between classes, all of us girls would just go into the girls' room. So we didn't have to mix with the boys, which would make us, both the boys and us would make us very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, from that time, during that time period, I could imagine there was it was a very new, very modern concept. Was it well received, would you say, by the general community? Did the boys and the girls and the professors overall, would you say they were appreciative of the new, I guess you could say, the modern approach to educating women?
I would think it was as confusing for the boys as it was for us. But the professors were very supportive. As I said, the very fact that they had this girls' room was a recognition of the fact that the girls needed this extra protection. And the boys really didn't know how to behave with the girls.
It was a new experience for the both of you guys. No, I understand.
So it was difficult for them also. I mean, the first time they were with the girls, there weren't that many mixed boys and girls schools in Lucknow, that one, maybe one or two.
So then after that, what was the next step?
Yeah, so next step, so being a girl, that was always like, after BSc, I'm not going to study. My parents said, fine, good for you. Then after BSc says, no, I think I want to go for a master's. And one of my cousins was in Aligarh University.
Aligarh Muslim University, yes.
Yeah, and she had just finished physics, and she said, the physics department is really good here. I think you should join. And some of family circumstances were such that going to Aligarh. My uncle was a professor there. So, and my older sister had joined and done a degree in education over there. So I decided I'd join Masters in Physics at Aligarh. So I moved there and I stayed in my uncle's house. And it was a very different environment from Lucknow University. It was Aligarh was a residential university.
And what is a residential university?
It was modeled more after Oxford and Cambridge by the founder, Sir Syed, where there were hostels, and most of the students lived in hostels on the campus.
Got it. Similar to dormitories, yes.
Yeah. And Lucknow University was more non-residential, where they had a small hostel, but most students lived at home.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So because of it being a residential university, it was a very different atmosphere. It was more collegial, more like a community. So it took a little while getting used to it. And another thing very different for me was that, and for my sister also, we were not used to being surrounded by so many Muslim students. It really was, because we used to be like the only Muslim girl in my class.
Wow.
Yeah. Or even in Lucknow University, I was the only Muslim girl in my class. I was the best, so everyone was really nice to me, and I was treated like a VIP. But the fact remained that we were surrounded by 99%. Maybe one more Muslim girl would come every now and then.
But from a racial perspective, it's very low.
Yeah. And so coming suddenly to Aligarh surrounded by Muslims was a bit bewildering, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah. Because we were just not used to it.
No, I can understand that. But would you say you found some sense of comfort in home eventually, or did it remain a position? Did you maintain a position of like bewilderment, or what's it called? Did you not adjust to it, or was it?
We adjusted to it eventually, but in the beginning it was difficult.
So how was that journey, though, for the first time coming out and being in a residential college and, experiencing life aside from Lucknow? This is your first step away from home, and I'm sure then there was, other steps.
In Aligarh, as I said, we did stay in my uncle's house.
Your uncle's house,
So he had his two children were there, my sister and I, and then later.
So you had some support system.
Yeah, and then my father's younger brother was also there he was a doctor in the medical college.
Oh, okay.
His wife was a professor in the English department. And then his daughter, the one who had influenced me, was a graduate student in the physics department. So we had a lot of family. My father's sister and her family were also in Aligarh. So we had a lot of family connection in Aligarh.
Oh, okay. Not too far from home then. Oh, that's good. At least you had a support system. So what happened after Aligarh?
So after Aligarh, I finished my master's there, and then I decided I wanted to appear for the IAS exam.
And what is IAS exam?
The Indian Administrative Service, which my father was in, and which was considered in those times the highest profession anyone could have. Not many women in it, just literally a handful. And but then my professor in the physics department found out that I was back in Aligarh preparing for IAS, and he called me and he said, "No way, you are going to do a PhD and you're going to do it under me."
He already dictated your path.
Yeah, he dictated my path, and in India, if a professor says something, you don't say no.
You respect the ustad, yes.
At least in those days, I don't know what the kids do now, but in those days, a professor was the law.
Yes, of course.
So I joined PhD with him. I got a fellowship from the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research.
Wow.
What they called a junior research fellowship. Started my PhD with him. He was a brilliant man, but he was a very happy-go-lucky guy. And after a while, I realized that I'm not making too much progress here. And also another interesting thing that happened was that Aligarh was one of the first universities. Aligarh and Banaras Hindu University were the first two universities in India which acquired a computer.
That's a different time.
Yeah.
I forget that and they were probably quite large and bulky and probably slow. What was that like?
Yeah, so this was 1970 when I finished my MSc. And so my professor said, learn computer programming. So, of course, there was no one to teach me because no one knew computer programming. So there were 2 books in the library, I still remember, on Fortran.
Just 2 books?
On Fortran. On Fortran by some American professor. So with those books, I learned Fortran programming. And of course, you had to punch cards and print things. It was a different world.
Yeah.
And you had to reserve time on the punching machine. You had to reserve time on the computer to run your program. So
different time.
Yeah. But it was very good training. I mean, I was one of the few students in all of India who knew how to use a computer.
Unbelievable.
And so as I said, that after I realized I wasn't getting anywhere with Professor Rahman, I mean, I would eventually get a PhD, but I was getting a little impatient. And so one day, I just, out of the blue, decided I will write to Oxford University. And just a little bit of background, my mother's uncles had been to Oxford.
Okay.
My own uncle had been to Oxford. So from my childhood, I really wanted to go to Oxford. But I think other than 2 of my aunts, none of the other women were given a chance to go to Oxford. But I thought in my heart of hearts, I didn't dare to say to anyone that I wanted to go to Oxford. So one day I just decided that to write to Oxford and so I got there. And I wrote it and I forgot about it. And then I got a response from them, an application form. I filled it, I sent it, didn't tell anyone. I thought that'll be the end of it. Then next thing was I got a letter from the physics department saying, can you describe what kind of research you'd like to do? So I wrote up something and I sent it back. And next thing they said, okay, send us 3 letters of reference. Now I had to tell my professors, right? Till now I hadn't told a single soul.
Now it's all unraveling now.
Yeah. So, of course, I was terrified. Tell my professor I had to practically scrape him off the ceiling, but he wrote a very nice letter of recommendation. I got 2 more professors. I got my 3 letters of recommendation. I still hadn't told my family because what's the point? I'm not going to get any admission. Send the letter of recommendation. Next thing I had a letter of admission from Oxford. And then I said, oh, what do I do now? I have no money.
I didn't think I was going to get this far.
Yeah, and I have no money. What will I do with this admission? So I went to my head of department, Professor Rais Ahmed, and I said, sir, I have this letter. What do I do now? And he was very supportive. He said, write to them, tell them to hold your admission for a year, and you apply for the Commonwealth Scholarship. So I said, will they hold the admission for a year? He said, yes, they will. Just write to them. And so I wrote to them, and then I subscribed to the Times of India because I knew that's where the ad would come out for this scholarship. And once the ad came out, I applied for it. And I still didn't tell anyone in my family. The next thing I knew is that I get a letter for interview to go to Delhi and for the interview.
So they held the Oxford interview in Delhi?
No, the Commonwealth
Scholarship. The Commonwealth Scholarship interview in Delhi, sorry.
Yeah. Commonwealth Scholarship was given by some Commonwealth organization. India was a part of the British Commonwealth.
Okay, understood.
And so they used to give scholarships to students in Commonwealth countries to come to Britain.
Wow. And what was the criteria for that?
I'm not sure.
Obviously, it was definitely high-performing individuals as yourself.
I think so. Basically, it was high. And then each country, I think, decided which areas they wanted to get their students trained in. You know, like did they wanted physics or in history or in art or whatever. So the different countries would send a short list to the Commonwealth office in London, and the London office would then, from that short list, would select the finalists.
Wow. And how many people received this scholarship, at least in your time, if you remember?
I think literally 4 or 5 were selected from India.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
One of 5 people in India to receive the scholarship. That's phenomenal. It's a testament to your capacities.
Yeah. I don't know if 4 or 5 were actually selected, but I think 5 names went up because I don't remember seeing any other Indian student when I went, then they invited all the students together at the same time in London for sort of a orientation program.
Gotcha.
And I don't remember seeing any Indian student. I may have been the only Indian student in that cohort.
And if that is the case, it's even more impressive. Regardless, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And how did you feel when you received the scholarship and now you have the admission to Oxford? You have your scholarship. Your professors have written all the good papers. Now it's time to tell your parents.
No, I told my parents when I went for the interview because my parents were in Delhi.
So you told that's the time you had to tell them.
Yeah. And another interesting thing was that my uncle was at that time was the Minister of Education in the central government.
Okay.
And this scholarship was under him, but no one in his office knew that I had applied because I didn't tell anyone. And they were all surprised to see me there on the morning of the interview.
They're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. So I went for the interview, and next thing I knew, I was selected. And one thing which might have helped was that my professor advised me when I told him I was going for that. He said, take your letter of admission to Oxford. So I took that letter of admission.
Wow. And that probably played a key role.
Yeah. So I'm sure that must have helped because probably none of the other students had letters of admission to a UK university. And so they interviewed me. And the next thing I knew, I heard from the Commonwealth Organization, from the British Council in Delhi, come and get your ticket. And such and such day, you go on. We used to have British Airways was those days called BOAC. So we had a BOAC ticket.
Oh, BOAC. Okay.
Yeah. So we used to call it better on a camel.
Better on a camel? That's funny. It was that bad? Was the service considered that bad?
I don't know.
That's a hilarious better on a camel.
Yeah. So I went, in those days, there was no direct flight. Went from Delhi to Tehran to somewhere else and then to London. I remember there were 2 stops in between.
Wow. And was that your first time on an airplane?
Not the first time on an airplane, first time on international. My first time on an airplane, I'd been from Lucknow to Calcutta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had been on it. But that was a tiny Fokker Friendship plane. Maybe like about 30 passengers.
Gotcha.
So it was first time on a big plane. Yeah.
How did your community respond to your admission to Oxford to pursue a higher education?
As I said, I didn't face the music. My mother did.
Your mother faced the music.
When all her friends and family members say, why are you sending her to Oxford? Nobody will marry her when she comes back. And my mother said, well, she got the admission, she got the money. I'm not going to stop her.
Wow. Well, props to your mother for standing up for you, especially in that time. Like I said, I mean, you could probably speak on it better, but I'm sure it wasn't exactly looked in a positive light by most people in that time. And we still experience it to some degree today.
Yeah, it wasn't. Definitely not. Yeah, the community.
But you knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You reached for the stars, and you reached the stars. And
I was fortunate. Yeah.
Fortunate and perseverant. Some credit is due there. I mean, yes, you were fortunate, but I mean, you defied all odds and you took the leaps forward for yourself.
Uh-huh.
So, that's extremely impressive. So now you came over to Oxford, and I'm sure that's the first time that you gained independence. How was that experience?
It was a bit intimidating. And so I stayed in what was called a college house. They put the graduate students in houses just outside the college-owned homes. And the dons, there used to be one don in each college. And so she typically had this was a women's college that I went. At that time, Oxford had separate women's and separate men's.
It wasn't co-ed.
It wasn't co-ed. They had a couple of co-ed colleges at the postgraduate level.
Okay.
But it wasn't co-ed. If it had been, I'm not sure I would have gone. So it was a women's college. Benazir Bhutto joined that year in my college. She was in my college. Imran Khan was also there.
That is unbelievable. What was that like? Did you know them? Did you ever interact with them?
Yes, of course, because Benazir was in my college. So I used to interact frequently with her. And one day she had a party in her room, and Imran Khan was there. This was right in the beginning, soon after I joined. And she introduced me to Imran Khan, and I said, "Who's Imran Khan?"
Who's this guy?
So she said, "Oh, he's a cricketer." I said, "Oh, okay." Whatever. Then after that, I used to see him practicing in the college parks, which were right next to our college, and I used to walk across them to go to the physics department.
Wow.
So now I didn't know cooking, so I used to eat in the college dining hall. Food was terrible.
Oh.
Gosh, British food was terrible.
I mean, coming from India and the spices, you'd think they would use a little more spice in the ingredients.
Not in 73. Now British food is Indian food, so they've learned how to cook. But, but then, no, if they put salt, it was something. Really. And so all my friends, even my British friends, were ready to give me a Victoria Cross for eating in college every day. But I don't know how to cook, so I ate in college every day. And then Christmas break came and the dining hall closed.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. That was a major disaster. And I didn't even know how to boil an egg. So what do? We had an electric kettle in the college house I lived in. And we had a common kitchen we were 4 girls. And so I put an egg in the kettle and I put the kettle on. A little while later, one of my flatmates came. She saw the kettle boiling, so she was about to make a cup of tea with it. She picked it up and I said, no, don't do it. There's an egg in there. So she said, why do you have an egg in there? So I said, why is there an egg in there? I said, I'm boiling the egg. She said, that's not how you boil eggs, Hashima.
You don't boil them in the tea kettle.
You don't boil them in the tea kettle. So that was how much I knew about it. I didn't even know how to make a cup of tea, but that was a learning experience. I learned how to cook.
How to cook. Yeah, no, venturing out into the new world, learning your own skills. It's definitely, I can resonate with that. I felt the same way in college. The first couple of cooking sessions were abysmal, to say the least.
And I didn't know what the vegetables looked like because I'd only seen them cooked.
Yeah.
I went grocery shopping. What is this?
All of physics, all of science, one of the most intelligent women on the world. But yeah, I can imagine how that could be a bit of a confusing situation.
Yeah.
No, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So it was a shock living on my own. Yeah.
And you were pursuing your PhD at Oxford at that time.
Yeah, we call it DPhil in Oxford.
You call it DPhil.
Yeah, it's the other place.
Yeah,
Cambridge, they call it PhD.
They call it PhD. DPhil. It's DPhil, guys. When you came to Oxford, what opportunities were presented to you that were perhaps not available back home? How did it expand your career, your future career?
One thing, again, like the computers, they were more advanced in Oxford.
Okay.
Yeah. But the fact that I could do computer programming was very helpful. Again, in Aligarh, they were very laid back for research. Here, I was on my own schedule, but, everyone else was, you were working in a much faster...
a fast-paced environment.
Faster pace, yeah. And you knew you'd get your work done. You would get your PhD done. I was able to talk to my supervisor. He wasn't laid back like my Aligarh supervisor, and so that way definitely I was able to actually concentrate on my research problem more and understand what I was supposed to do, and interacting with the other research scholars and with other faculty.
Got it. So after you completed your PhD, What were the next steps? I'm curious, how did you come over to the US?
Yeah, so again, after my PhD, so one condition of this Commonwealth scholarship was that you should go back to your country after you finish your degree. Most students didn't, but I actually did want to go back to India. So I joined the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Bombay.
Yes.
So I joined as, I think they called it a visiting scientist or something. It's basically a postdoc. So I started a postdoc there, and then I think I'd been there for a year or something, and then I applied for a faculty position at the University of Pune. And in, what was it, in 1977, I think, I applied there, and they called me for interview, and they selected me. So I joined Pune University. I loved Pune University, but that was quite an experience in the sense that I was the only Muslim on the faculty and one of 3 faculty members from the state of Uttar Pradesh,
Wow.
UP, non-Marathi speaking. Everyone else was Marathi speaking, and it was at that time a stronghold, well-known stronghold of Chitpavan Brahmins. I learned that time that Chitpavan Brahmins were the highest caste Brahmins among the Maharashtrians in Maharashtra. So people would ask me point blank, how did you get selected on the faculty?
As a Muslim woman, yeah.
Yeah, you're not a Chitpavan Brahmin, you don't even speak Marathi, you're from UP, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So I said, I don't know, I applied, I got selected. And now I think of it, that, it's not every day a PhD from Oxford comes knocking at your door. So it's not easy to turn them down, even if they aren't Chitpavan Brahmins. So they did, but they were all very good for me. I really enjoyed Pune University. I liked it a lot. And then my mother was getting impatient. And in 1979, she gave me notice. She said, you've got to get married.
Oh.
Either you find someone or I'll find someone by you. But by the end of the year, you're getting married. That's it. There's
Done deal.
No questions asked. So
I can't even imagine that you're in the midst of your career and now all of a sudden this gets thrown on your head. How did you feel?
And I'm saying, what's your problem? I'm not even asking you. I'm earning my own money. I'm quite happy. I've got my own home. So why are you pressurizing me to do this?
Yeah.
But you didn't say no to your parents. That was the thing. So in September, I found myself married.
Wow.
Yeah. So in September 1, my present husband, he came. So he sent, that's another story. He sent a marriage proposal to my parents. He went through proper channels. And he said, here I am, and I'm proposing to your daughter. So they sent me his proposal, and they said, can you come to Delhi to meet him? He'll be coming to India. In September, I said, no way, it's in the middle of my semester. The best I can do is if he comes to Bombay on a weekend, then I'll come to Bombay. So he came to Bombay, September 1, 1979, and I went and we met. I know this sounds nerdy. We met at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research.
It's completely your MO.
So we met there. My father came from Delhi, and we met there. Then my father took us to Taj Hotel, which is at that time used to be, the fanciest hotel in Bombay.
Yeah.
It's on the seaside, and you go right on the top floor. There's a lounge called the Sea Lounge. I believe it still exists. And there's the fresh sea breeze, and you see the gateway of India from there, which was.
Oh.
And he ordered tea, and then my father said, "I'm going for a walk."
Yeah.
And he went for a 2-hour walk.
He took the long route.
Yeah, by the seaside, and left me to talk to this young man. And so we talked, and I gave him my conditions. I said, if you really want to marry me, these are my conditions. I will work. I will not change my name. I'll come to the USA, but I will come back after 2 years, I will not live in USA. I will live in India. So he said, okay, he accepted all my
Oh, wow. Wow. How sweet.
Yeah. And then my father came back, and then this young man decided, he said, I'm going for a walk. So he went for a 2-hour walk while my father debriefed me. That my father says, so what is that? Well, what can I say in a 2-hour interview? You decide. All I can say, he's okay. I'm not repelled by him. But that's
not repelled by him.
But that's about
that was the minimal requirement, not to be repelled by him.
That's right.
That's hilarious.
So my father took him to Delhi. He had his interview committee there. My father, my parents, my uncle, my aunts, I don't know who else they included in the interview committee. They approved him, and my father called and he said, okay, we fixed the date of the wedding, September 20th, come to Delhi.
Done.
Done.
Wow. That's very traditional. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's how it was back in that day.
Right. So then, so I went, Delhi, got married. And then I came to the US in November. And
shortly after the wedding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, he had a green card sorry, he didn't have a green. He had an H1 visa.
Yes.
And I was to come on an H4 visa. There was
as a dependent
some time lag between. No, I mean, there was a time limit within which I had to come for the H4. And of course, all my friends started teasing me. They said, Hashima, why have you got an H4? Don't be surprised if you find H2 and H3 already there.
That's funny. It's not how it works, but
Because, there's the 4 wives for Muslims also.
Oh, so. There's finding H1, H2, H3. That's hilarious.
So they were all teasing me. They said, Hashima, don't be surprised if you find H2 and H3 already.
They're already there waiting for you. That's hilarious.
Why have you got H4? Anyway, so I reach here with my H4 in North Carolina, 1979. Oh my gosh, it was only tobacco fields and forests then.
Coming from India, I'm sure that was a shock.
And coming from Bombay, which was knee-deep in people.
Yeah, big metropolitan city.
And my greatest shock was not seeing people. And of course, I didn't know how to drive. So I was to tell him, just leave me in the mall. I don't want to do any shopping, but I have to see people. I have to see human beings. And so then I learned how to drive. And he was in Research Triangle Park. And there were 3 good universities there. Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, and NC State Raleigh. We lived in Raleigh. So I visited all 3 universities. And I told them, I did something very American, which I didn't realize then. It only dawned on me a little while ago that was really a very American thing. I went to each of them and I said, here I am. I can work for you free. Because, H4 visa, I couldn't accept money. So each of them excited. They get a fresh PhD from Oxford saying, I'm going to work for you free. So each of them said, fine, yeah, you come over. So then I chose to go to Duke. And so the Duke said, they had what is called the Triangle University Nuclear Lab. All the 3 universities had combined to make a lab at Duke where they did nuclear reaction experiments.
Wow.
And so they said, we did these experiments. We've had them for a year. But we haven't had a theorist to help us analyze them. So we haven't been able to publish. So if you help us analyze this, we'd love to have you. So I said, sure. I said, just let me use your computer and your library and interact with the faculty and I'll join. So I started going twice a week. And after a couple of months, they said, we really like your work. We want to pay you for it. So they got my visa converted to a postdoc visa. They said, you're close enough to your PhD that you can be a postdoc.
Okay. And
they could pay me a postdoc stipend.
Wow. So they went out of the way because of your work.
Yeah. So as I said, why it's so American is that whenever there's a new product in the US, they give it out for free. And if the public likes it, they'll pay for it and buy it. So I give out my product free and they liked it and they wanted to buy it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I started working at Duke, and then the green card labor certification came through, and then I applied for an NRC, National Research Council fellowship at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Oh, with the EPA?
They had a research lab there. They have an EPA office there, and they had a research lab. And so the proposal I wrote was, at that time, in the winter, there used to be a lot of pollution in Denver, Colorado, and a brown cloud would settle down over Denver.
A hazy fog.
In 85, 86.
Interesting.
So they wanted to understand what was causing the brown cloud. So how could it be eliminated? So I did some simulate sort of modeling for visibility degradation caused by different pollutants in the atmosphere, which we knew Denver, Colorado had because of the industry there. And then went to Denver and in winter and collected the particles, got an instrument from University of Minnesota and collected the particles, different size particles, and analyzed them and came to the conclusion that the greatest visibility degradation was being caused by car exhaust. At that time, the car exhaust was,
it's highly unregulated at that time.
Unregulated. And so there was a lot of carbon coming out of it. So the carbon for car exhaust was the major contributor, then nitrates from pollution and sulfates.
That sounds a little bit different than what you studied. Was it not? Like you studied theoretical nuclear physics.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was. But physics is physics, right? And I knew optics. And then I did the modeling, and I was able to use the same mathematical models that I used to model nuclear reaction, nuclear wells.
Really?
Yeah. And use the same mathematical models to model the atmosphere.
Wow, I didn't even realize that would have been a transferable skill, but I guess you learn something new every day.
I thought of it. I said, I can do it the same way.
Yeah. So
because there's basic mathematics
and optics and I can understand that.
Yeah, and the potential well, this looks like the spread looks like the potential well. So that's a spread in energy. This is a spread in particles. So
got it.
Mathematically, you can use the same mathematical function
to derive a solution. I see.
And then, of course, the analysis was done by statistical analysis. And so I did that. And then in the meantime, I got pregnant.
Oh.
And so I called the NRC and I said, what kind of maternity leave do you have? And there was dead silence at the other end of the universe.
They probably didn't have any protocols. They probably didn't have any protocols at that time. It was probably a very male-dominated industry.
There was dead silence at the other end, and then suddenly it seemed like the guy had fainted. And then as he recovered, he said, "This has never happened before. I will call you back." And then he calls me back 3 days later, and he says, "We had a meeting," and I'm imagining a room in DC with white guys sitting around it and saying,
talking about Dr. Hashima's pregnancy.
That's why we never give these two young women. What do we do now?
Oh my God.
So they said, "We decided you're not sick, so you can't take sick leave. So take all the vacation leave you have, which is all of 2 weeks. And then if you need any extra leave, you can take leave without pay," which was a big deal for them at that time. So I said, fine. And so, of course, I didn't take leave. And I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And my poor boss was getting more and more nervous. And he kept saying to me, "Hashima, I think you should take some leave, take some time off." And I'm saying, "I don't have leave, Tom, remember that." And I think he was quite sure I was going to deliver at my desk.
Oh.
So I worked till the day my son was born.
Wow. Wow, that I can't even imagine. Honestly, that's first of all, that's that it's tragic, but also funny at the same time, in the sense that like it's very ignorant, that mindset, because it was definitely a male-dominated industry.
And the thing was, why it surprised me even more was that I'd come from India, which had, right after independence, they had this 3 months paid maternity leave and 2 months unpaid maternity leave, 5 months of maternity leave, Government of India gives. I'm thinking, if Government of India can afford that, why can't the Government of the United States afford that?
Yeah.
But anyway, that was it. So then...
That's ridiculous.
So I worked till the day Sadiq was born. And then I took my 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
And then I started coming back, and we had moved to an apartment close to where we worked. So I would come and then go back to Nursing and then come again. And so my boss said, Hashima, you don't have to come in. As long as you do your work, you can work from home and come in only when it's necessary. So he was very, very supportive. He said, I have to sign your time card. You don't have to worry.
Oh, that's very sweet of him.
Yeah, that was really sweet of him. So Sadiq was born in October, and in January we went back to India. And then we were in India for 2 years in Bombay. And every year we had to come back for renewal of our green card. And our second son was born. First year, all three of us came, my husband and Sadiq and I. Then the next year, the other baby was born. And it became hard and expensive on an Indian salary to come back. And then we had to take a decision. Either you give up your green card or you just come back.
That is a unbelievably difficult position to be put into.
Yeah. So it had been so hard to get the green card. And then, as I don't know if you've ever read that poem, Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti. So there, there's a forbidden fruit. And when this girl tastes that fruit, she can't forget the taste of the fruit. So it's like, when you taste the forbidden fruit, you can't forget its taste. So we decided to come back.
Wow.
And
so you left your home country to pursue the life in America.
Right.
Oh.
And I wrote to both of my professors in Duke and in USABP, and they both said, yeah, come, we'll have something for you whenever you come. And then in the meantime, my husband applied for jobs. And we decided we'll come back to North Carolina. But then before we came, he got this offer from Johns Hopkins. So I wrote to both Duke and USAPA, and I said, look, now we are going to Baltimore. So Duke said, well, we are relying on you, at least come for the summer. So then we came to Baltimore, and my sister-in-law came with me. She stayed with the babies, and I went. So I used to go to Duke and come on weekends. And so I finished the work they wanted me to do.
Okay.
And EPA said that we will give you a contract and you can work from home. So I was maybe one of the first teleworkers. So those days, the federal government had what they call an FTS telephone line, which would connect their computers through a telephone line to a modem. You connect a modem.
Very archaic.
With a phone, you connect your modem to a monitor.
Wow.
Computer monitor.
So it was facilitated through telephone lines. That's interesting.
You did it through telephone lines. So I bought a second-hand monitor from the Duke University, extras, and I bought those 300 baud was a very fast monitor. I bought it from Radio Shack, and then at night for a telephone after 10 p.m. you would get free long distance lines. So after 10 p.m. I would log into the US EPA computer, work over there, and then my boss in the morning would collect the printout, put it in the mail, and mail it to me.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of logistics for simple work.
Yeah, so I had the little baby sitting on my lap while I was working at night.
Yeah. Can't even imagine. So how was it navigating being a mother as well as, working on impactful stuff like this? What was that experience like?
And then we had to look for childcare. So at that time in Maryland, they did not allow daycare centers for infants under 2.
Huh.
So the older one we could send. He had just turned 2, but the younger one was 1-year-old. And so for a year, we had to somehow manage private childcare, which was a challenge. But we got through it and then started sending them to daycare. And then they went to school. And between the two of us, we'd meet different ends of the school bus. My husband was very supportive. And then while I was at Duke, I told them I'll be going to Baltimore. I asked my professors, do you know anyone over there? So one of the professors said that he was a PhD from Hopkins, and he said, I get the alumni newsletter. You can have a look at it. I looked at it, and they said, we are converting from physics to physics and astronomy. And this is the new staff. And there were 2 names there which recognized who used to be students with me in Oxford, and they used to be senior to me. So I wrote to them. One of them answered back. So when I came to Baltimore, I went to visit him. And he said, and I found out at that time that they were winding up nuclear physics in Hopkins and, really starting astronomy. And so this friend of mine said that, this new institute has opened, Space Telescope Science Institute. They are looking for good people. I'll introduce you to some people. So he introduced me. And they said, we've advertised 3 times and we haven't found anyone who will write simulation software for the Hubble. And do you know optics? I, with arrogance of nuclear physics, I thought, oh, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And, I had done optics in India. They really teach you everything.
And a little bit, I'm sure, from the EPA as well.
Yeah. And in EPA also I did optics. So I did know basic optics. So I said, yeah, I know optics and I knew computer programming. So I could certainly put the 2 together. And I hadn't even heard of the Hubble Space Telescope. So they hired me. And I was placed this big blueprint of the camera in front of me. Anyway, I got guidance from my supervisor, Dr. Chris Burrows. And together we wrote the optics simulation software. And then when Hubble was launched, they made me the telescope scientist.
Wow.
And so then I had to keep it in focus.
Keep the telescope in focus, correct?
Yeah, because it was out of focus. The mirror is flawed. The Hubble mirror is flawed.
The pictures, if I remember, were coming out blurry slightly, correct? And it was due to fitting, was it not? It was a fitting issue. It wasn't sitting properly in the frame.
The edges of the mirror had been shaved off just a hairbreadth more than it should have.
And that was refracting the light, and it wasn't creating a clear image.
So because of that, the rays from the outside edge were focusing at a different point.
And how did you solve that?
So I had to first characterize the error, exactly what the error was, and then the engineers figured out how to develop corrective optics which would invert that error so that the light which went into the instrument was corrected light. So that's how it was done. So first there were 4 instruments. They removed one, and in its place they put in what was called NuSTAR, corrective optics for space telescope, and it had 3 arms would spring out in front of, which had little mirrors, corrective mirrors in front of the 3 science instruments. And subsequent science instruments have all been replaced now, had the corrective optics built into the science instruments.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so the instruments that are there now on Hubble have corrective optics within them.
I see.
So, but so it was really challenging. It was a lot of fun working at STSCI.
But you said that environment was also not exactly the most compatible.
Yeah, but at the same time, it was difficult for women.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the scientists, Meg Urey, she had the first, what did she call it, Women in Astronomy conferences in Baltimore.
One of the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we came up with something called the Baltimore Charter.
The Baltimore Charter?
Yeah.
What is that?
It was, on working conditions for women and for them getting recognition. And so it was quite a detailed thing. I don't know if it's there on the web or not. We didn't have the web those days. But,
Yeah.
but maybe someone has put it there now. Anyway, one day I just decided that I wanted to do something. After the servicing mission, we fixed Hubble. And then I just one day decided I just wanted to leave SDSCI. And then this opportunity came up at NASA headquarters. They were looking for a visiting senior scientist. I applied. They selected me. And so I joined there. My colleagues were really very nice, very supportive. But the atmosphere, again, was, just to give you some idea, there was a magazine called Space News. I think it still exists, but that time it used to be a paper thing. And one day there was an article which came in it, NASA, male, pale, and stale.
Male, pale, and stale.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that gives you an idea of what NASA was like at that time. And NASA headquarters was definitely like that. Because whenever I was to sit in a meeting and look around, most of the time, I was the only person of color, and quite often the only woman, and quite often the only woman and person of color.
A minority within a minority.
Yeah. And then one day I came into the office. I had to come in really early because I had to take an early morning bus. And there was one of these computer sheets where someone had printed NASA, male, pale, and stale. And we are proud of it.
Oh.
And stuck it on the door of the astrophysics division.
That's hilarious.
I came, I saw it, and I didn't say anything. I went and sat in my office. I still don't know who put it there. But a little while later, one of the very senior people had come, and that sign had gone up.
Yeah.
Had gone down. Nobody ever talked about it, not even the senior person. So I never knew who put that sign there. But just to give you an idea of what the atmosphere was like.
I understand.
But at the same time, people were very respectful and they were very friendly. And I really liked working at NASA headquarters. And I'd initially come for 1 year because Space Telescope said, we can't let you go for more than 1 year. Then headquarters wanted me to stay another year. They said, okay, you stay 1 more year. Then they wanted me to stay more. They said, no way, we haven't let anyone stay more than 2 years. And then my division chief called the head of AURA. AURA is the Association of University of Research in Astronomy.
Oh, sorry, what was that again?
Association of Universities of Research in Astronomy.
Okay, understood.
It's an association of, I think, about 24, 26 universities, and Space Telescope was operated by AURA.
Understood.
AURA's got a contract from NASA.
Wow.
Even now. So you just call the head of AURA and said, make it happen. So,
we need her.
We need her. Yeah. So then I became what is called an Intergovernmental Personnel Act.
IPA, yes.
IPA. So I became an IPA for 2.5 years. I became an IPA. Went back to Baltimore.
Sorry, before you go, can you explain to the viewers what IPA is?
So the federal government has some very interesting ways of working. And if they want some expertise from the private sector, there was an act passed by Congress called the Intergovernmental Personnel Act, under which the government can loan expertise from the private sector. And those people would be like temporary civil servants. So it would be different from contractors, where contractors can't do a lot of work. They can't handle money, for example, which civil servants can. And so IPAs would be temporary civil servants. But one of the conditions is that whichever organization loans them has to promise, A, it has to be a nonprofit, and B, it has to promise to take them back at the end of their IPA.
And you were one of the first few people to receive it in physics, correct?
From Space Telescope, I was one of the first few. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the first one at NASA headquarters. There had been at some other organizations.
Oh, understood.
Yeah.
So you got your IPA, they granted the IPA to you, and you stayed on for...
I stayed for, I think, 2.5 years as an IPA, which was the maximum which at that time NASA was permitted. And then I went back to Baltimore, and then NASA advertised a civil service position. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is that before I joined NASA, just I think a year before I joined NASA, I got my US citizenship. So I was now a US citizen, and so I could apply for a NASA civil service job.
Mm. So what was the citizenship process like for you?
So that was something I thought a lot and hard. It was emotionally very hard. So it took me a long time. My older son was born a US citizen. My husband took up US citizenship, I don't know, in 80 something. And then my younger son, who was born an Indian citizen, was always very keen to be a US citizen. So my husband sponsored him and he became a US citizen. And then I started thinking that, I'm the only one who's not. And it made me a little uncomfortable. But it still took me a while. I kept thinking, I have to mean that oath before I will become a citizen. So I worked on that for a couple of years, and as soon as I felt ready that I can take that oath of allegiance, that's when I became a citizen.
Wow. And I remember, if I remember correctly, it was at the stadium with thousands of other people, was it not?
Sorry?
It was at a stadium with a bunch of, with the thousands of other people, was it not, when you received it?
Yes. So that was... so when I went to take my oath, it was in the newly made Oriole Stadium in Baltimore.
Mm.
So the governor of Baltimore had decided that 3,000 immigrants from Maryland would take the oath at the same time.
That's insane.
Yeah. So I was in this big stadium with about 3,000 immigrants taking the oath of allegiance at the same time. It was quite an awesome experience. It was beautiful weather. It was the month of September. Governor himself came. There was a message from the president. Yeah. It was a very emotional moment. And he gave a certificate to all of us, a governor's certificate of appreciation or something.
And at the inauguration, when you got your citizenship, it said, "You come to us with all your cultures. After this oath, you will all leave as citizens of one nation.
Yeah.
Bring us your cultures."
Yeah.
How did that strike a chord in you?
Yeah, I thought that was a very powerful and very inclusive kind of a statement, and made us feel really proud and part of this rich culture, of the melting pot, so to say, of the United States, to be a part of it.
Did you feel like you belonged in your community after taking the oath?
Yes.
And can you describe a time in your life where you felt like a true sense of belonging for the first time after coming to America? Truly a sense of belonging.
It's hard to tell, but I would say certainly after taking that oath, because as I said before taking that oath, I didn't want to take the oath till I felt that sense of belonging. And then I took the oath again when I became a civil servant to serve the people of the United States. And for a long time, I kept that oath of civil service on my desk.
Wow.
Yeah, it was only when we changed offices that it got lost somewhere.
So going back to it, you got your citizenship and you applied for NASA for the role, correct? you were reapplying at NASA. If I remember, after the oath, once you got your citizenship, you said you could finally apply for positions at.
So I took the oath when I was still in Space Telescope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so NASA. Let's talk about NASA. You got you got the IPA. You worked for 2.5 years. Well, what happened after that? What were the next steps?
Yeah. Then I went back to Space Telescope.
Yeah.
For a few months, and then I became a civil servant and came back to NASA. And it was very exciting because I really liked the work at headquarters, which is why I came back. And as a civil servant, I was then given a lot more responsibilities, which they couldn't give me as an IPA. So I undertook new missions, and research programs. You really feel you make a difference because you do, because we write the solicitations, we run the review panels, we make the recommendations to the selecting officials for which research should be done. And then we also have user committees, which we set those up for the missions which are in operation, which advise us on what we should be doing next. And for a long time, I was also executive secretary of an advisory committee, of the Astrophysics Advisory Committee. So a lot of really, it's very dynamic, the work at headquarters.
No, I could imagine. And how long have you worked at NASA now?
Sorry?
How long have you worked at NASA?
Counting the IPA and visiting scientist, 30 years.
Wow.
As a civil servant, 25.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just got my 25-year pin in, I think, August 1, I completed it, but they gave it a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So, as an immigrant who has seen both worlds, what are your hopes specifically, or hopes and dreams for the future, perhaps maybe for society at large, or maybe for yourself?
For the future, I would like to see. I would like to see the younger generation take, really take more interest in science and STEM fields, because that helps them to expand their view and to think critically, and rather than be very biased. That you really need to put things in perspective and be critical thinkers. So that's where I would like to see the next generation going.
No, I would agree to that. I think critical reasoning and critical thought process is extremely crucial in today's day and age, especially with social media and, news and a lot of things, being able to make your own independent decisions. And not only that, but I feel like STEM is, engineers, scientists, they really do push the world forward. Yeah,
and as you said, with social media and now with artificial intelligence, not to get too dependent on artificial intelligence and forget your own human intelligence.
Yeah.
So
no, that's definitely an up-and-coming issue.
Which is why critical thinking is even more important.
No, that's a very strong point. And what have you been doing in the meantime to see these kids in STEM? I know you're here in Dallas. We're here at the Discover STEM facility here, and you came into Dallas to give a talk to. Actually, I'll let you speak on it. What are you doing here at Discover STEM today?
Here, yesterday there was an award ceremony, and so I gave out awards, and I gave a little bit of a motivational, what I thought was a motivational talk to the students. Congratulating them for what they've done and appreciating the innovative work that they're doing, and encouraging them to continue their dreams and aim for a Nobel Prize.
Wow!
But that's what Mirza Faizan had told me when he started this initiative, that he would like some of them to end up with a Nobel Prize. So that's what I did yesterday. And then today I talked to a couple of groups of students. I talked to them about NASA, about Hubble, about Webb, and about other missions. And they had a lot of questions. So I was basically answering their questions.
Well, first of all, I think it's absolutely fantastic that not only are you an inspirational figure just through your career, but you're also putting real impact by meeting people in person and trying to motivate them to pursue excellence. And I think that is something that is very much so needed. I mean, it's inspirational to everyone, regardless of what their immigrant background is or whether they're an immigrant or not. However, I think for Muslim immigrants, especially for women, I'm sure you could attest that this is a very, very crucial thing. We've seen some limitations in our community where education is not exactly viewed in a favorable light sometimes for women, or they're too scared to send their daughters out, or they keep them at home, and there's a lot of, or sometimes you're met with negativity within the community, similar to how you said, who will marry an educated Oxford girl. What is your response to that for people who may view a woman's education or women pursuing STEM in that way? What is your response to that?
To who will marry an Oxford girl or an educated girl?
To an educated girl, yes. Or, why sometimes I feel like, the males are definitely pushed to go get a higher education. And I think in today's age, it's a little better now. However, there are still some limiting mindsets. Prime examples, remember that scientist that we spoke to at NASA, the Bengali scientist.
Yeah, so I'd tell the girls that you pursue your dreams, what's important to you. If it's important for you to marry someone who the community approves and your dreams are not important, then go for that. But if your dreams are important, then go for your dreams. I mean, there's nothing wrong. Some girls want to just follow what their society tells them, and they don't want to do anything else. If you want to do that, that's okay. But don't be forced to do that. If you have other dreams, you want to be a doctor, an engineer, or a school teacher, or a musician, or whatever, pursue that dream, and you'll find your partner who is willing to dream with you or to take your dream forward.
That's beautiful, Dr. Hashima Hasan. I think that this will be a great place to end our episode. And I just wanted to say again, truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And I really, really hope that this message reaches the people who need to hear it. And your story and your journey will not only be inspirational to immigrants, especially Muslim immigrants, but it'll also be inspirational to the women who may want to, strive for the stars, and, they may be doubting themselves. So thank you so much for paving the path for humanity. Thank you so much for inspiring millions of people. And thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. The extraordinary isn't distant. It lives quietly among us, within the stories of Muslim immigrants who built, dreamed, and gave more to this world than it ever expected. Their journeys remind us that we too are a part of the story, shaping communities, inspiring progress, and strengthening the very fabric of society. If this story moved you, share it, carry it forward, and let it challenge how you see the world. Because every story shared brings us closer to understanding, and understanding is where change begins. You can watch full episodes and behind-the-scenes moments on YouTube, and join the conversation on Instagram at extraordinary.journeys. Follow, subscribe, and leave a review. It truly helps others discover these stories. Ordinary lives, extraordinary journeys. This is the real story of those who redefine possible. I'm your host, Saad, and I'm truly grateful you spent your time with us. Thank you for listening to Extraordinary.